Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're here today with Dustin McMillan, who's the president and CEO of McMillan Co. So, Dustin, first off, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
And to get started, I always like to ask the same question, right? So, I'm sure growing up, you didn't expect to be in the 3PL logistics space. So, I wanted to ask you, how you ultimately started out and how you got to where you are now.
I have a hard time saying no to opportunity. So, I guess my first warehouse I took down was a friend of mine referred me to a customer, and everything worked out that they onboarded, and we ended up taking a warehouse down to warehouse their product, and it's grown into what it is today.
And how did that ultimately, I guess, from the career progression standpoint, like where did the break into the logistics space happen?
I guess to start from the beginning, I started McMillan Co. as a consulting firm for sales and marketing, mainly geared towards manufacturers and manufacturers reps. And then that morphed into me being a manufacturer's rep. And then that ended up turning into me buying and selling, machine parts and castings and fabrication and all those things, instead of just getting cut a commission. And at that point, we would bring them into our facility and we would kit them and put QR codes and everything and palletize them exactly how the end customer wanted them. So when it got to the job line or production line, they could take it off in a certain order and it would bolt right onto the machine. And then that grew into, we did a project for Red Robin during COVID. We, again, sourced everything, brought it into our facility, kitted and shipped it to over 800 locations throughout the U.S. in like 8 weeks. So it was something, it was all the dividers. So if anyone's ever been in a Red Robin restaurant, the glass divider between each booth, we did all that. And then we started warehousing, just turnkey, bringing product in, sending it out, cleaning things. Today we do toll packing with blending. So we blend the material, and again, that was an opportunity that came from a customer needing some warehousing and blending, and we had no experience in blending whatsoever, and they coached us through it, and now we blend on a pretty large scale. We're blending 500,000 pounds of product a month and toll packing it, warehousing it, fulfilling around the world for them.
Wow. And I guess to just go specifically into the blending, right? You said that they coached you through it. From the business owner perspective, what did that process look like in kind of understanding whether or not it was a worthwhile investment, right? I'm sure there's a lot of infrastructure required, a lot of training, a lot of labor. So how did that whole process look like on your end?
Yeah, we ended up actually working with a group called MEP, Manufacturers Extension Program. It's a nationally government funded program that they are consultants and engineers. So they work closely with us through Columbus State, and they helped us build it out, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and how to do each process. We wrote SOPs for the entire process, and it's grown into one of our core competencies. So the company themselves gave us the recipe. It was a very simple process for the most part, and then we build in all the quality aspects of it, and we've taken it as far as on April 20th we'll be ISO 9001 2015 certified. So we've went all in with that service, if you will, to make sure that we're putting out the absolute best quality product on time every time.
And how do you go about kind of ensuring that? I mean, you do a lot of different, so you have quite a few different specializations, if you will. So how do you go about managing them, also making sure that the quality is top notch more than anything?
Systems. So we're very system oriented. I'm a huge believer in Deming and his theories. It's all about systems, and he says you don't have a people problem, you have a system problem or a process problem. So we create a process or a system for what we're doing, and everything is pretty related. Similar industries. While we're blending multiple different products, multiple different industries, the process is relatively the same. We have different quality aspects that each customer may want. So we work with them up front to make sure that we build those quality checks in, through the process, and we're able to, give them a certificate of authorization or just a certificate of performance. We have a lab that we're testing product in to make sure, if they're wanting us to use certain micro tracers to blend the product, that we can tell them definitively, that the blend is complete. We're testing for density throughout the process. So it's all about systems and getting everyone bought in on the system.
And I guess to go further into that, do you find there's a difference between, call it we'll say run-of-the-mill standard 3PL provider and what you guys provide, and kind of, I guess from a customer understanding aspect, right? You're offering a much more tailored solution, if you will.
Sure.
So from, that initial RFP process, is it a lot more detailed and intricate than it would be otherwise?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what separates us from is we're going, what I like to call cradle to grave. So we're helping possibly source product to blend or boxes or packaging to put it in. So a lot of places will just blend or just package or just fulfill. We're doing everything from sourcing the product, blending the product, putting the product in packaging, kitting it if 3 different products need to go together and ship straight to the consumer, or to another 3PL that like an Amazon warehouse or whatnot. And then for other products that we're co-packing, we're working with box designers and packaging designers to provide a full service. We're trying to cut down or increase density on a pallet, so they reduce their trucking. You can different things to help the end customer save hundreds of thousands of dollars, where they may come and say, okay, we want this box orientation on this pallet, and you can only get in that orientation, you're getting 20 boxes or whatever. We just did this with the customer that we're onboarding now. We got it to where we're able to put, I think, 42 boxes on a pallet. So we just decreased their trucking need by 50%. And if we're shipping 8 truckloads a month for them, it could have been 16. So, possibly $20,000 a month that we saved that company.
Awesome. And do you find that, you having the consulting background into the space kind of helped, speed up that learning curve, right? I'm assuming as you've gone from, starting it out to where you are today, you've learned a lot. But did that consulting background, if you will, being in such a niche space, ultimately help kind of with the learning, with the understanding, with the teaching?
Yeah, I think so. That's a great question. I've always, even when I was, selling, and that was my full-time thing, was selling. It wasn't really selling. It was, finding a problem and creating a solution. And if you're creating a solution, the selling isn't really selling. It's you're becoming a partner, and you're helping that individual or helping that person solve a problem. It's a natural progression. If we're just trying to sell you a pen, everyone's seen that movie. You're just trying to convince the person that they need the pen. But if that pen solves a problem, then it's a natural, it just, everything naturally comes together. There's a problem to everything, and you just have to figure that out.
And I guess to go further into that, how do you ultimately communicate that value to the customer, right? When you're selling a product, like you said, you're kind of convincing them to buy it, if you will, right? When you're selling a service and one as intricate as, the space that we're in, there is a lot of that, call it education. You have to explain a lot, right?
Sure. And just asking questions, communicating, asking questions, trying to understand what, ultimately what are they trying to do? And business to business, ultimately everyone wants to make money. So, but how do you do that? How do you effectively make more money? How do you increase your profit margins? How do you de-risk what you're doing? When we're blending for somebody, yeah, they could do it in-house. I mean, we're not, curing cancer here. Anyone could go buy a blender and a packaging machine and do it in-house. However, being that we've taken it to the next level, and we have the history, they can fire it up and start running, almost immediately. We're working with a company that was going to, do a feed additive in the ag industry, and their idea was that they were going to set everything up. And they walked into our facility and they're like, "Oh shit, you guys already have the process. You have the quality standards in place. You have the management in place. You have all these things in place. So why would we try and reinvent the wheel and spend, years getting everything set up and hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment and start from scratch?"
1,000%. And then to, I guess, go into that even further, how do those customers ultimately find you, or how do you find those customers?
Just doing things like this. We have a great marketing team that we utilize. The owner of the company is actually in my Vistage group, so I meet with a team, like-minded folks that belong to Vistage. Hunter Marketing in Columbus, Ohio, has helped us with our website, which ultimately tells a story. We understand the importance of AI. AI is becoming more important, and people use AI more today than Google. So we're cognizant of those things, and we want to show up. We're advertising on companies like WareMatch to get our name out there. It's repetitive. We go to trade shows, just anything, emails.
And is that strategy a lot more specialized for you because you operate in a much more niche field?
Yeah, I mean, being that we're hunting with a rifle and we're not fishing with a net. So, if you're very laser focused on what you're doing, and believe me, we haven't always been. I mean, I created the company and I didn't even know what the hell I wanted to do. But I wanted to own my own company. I wanted the freedom, which was kind of funny in the very beginning. But being that we know who we want to work with and exactly what we do, we're searching for a very specific person or company that we want to work with. So yeah, we can look at a trade show and go, okay, I want to meet with these 5 companies, and that's it. I don't care about anyone else, but these 5 companies we know that we can service.
And as a business owner over time, was that something you had to learn, right? You find the problem is often that people say yes to everything, right?
Yeah, and quite honestly, when you are a new entrepreneur, you do say yes to everything because you're just trying to create revenue. You're trying to stay alive. You're figuring it out unless you know exactly what you want to do from the beginning. And I have a buddy that they just sold their company, and they knew exactly what they were doing from the beginning, and that's the market they went after, and they were wickedly successful. They are wickedly successful. I was not like that. And you figure it out over time. The first time that my first meeting in Vistage, I had a guy look at me And he like sits back in his chair and he just looks at me, he goes, Dustin, he goes, I don't even know what you do. And I'm like, oh, that's a problem. Like this guy, runs a giant company and I'm sure he's looked at my website. I'm sure and he has no idea what we do. That was a very definitive turning point to, okay, we need to know and we need to be able to tell the story of exactly what do we do. And we made that shift 4 years ago, and it's changed everything.
And do you find that sometimes it is difficult to explain or convey exactly what you do?
So now not so much. I mean, I think what we do now is pretty self-explainable. But some people probably will never understand what we do. But they're not in the industry, and they, it's like explaining a 3PL to somebody, or or me learning something in the medical field. I'm never going to fully understand, high blood pressure. So everyone just has to. Yes, not everyone's going to understand exactly what we do.
But to that point, why do you find that the 3PL industry is so confusing and convoluted? Because I mean, when you take away the surface layer, I mean, feel free to disagree, but I find that once you take away that initial base, it's not rocket science to me. But I find that there is a big disconnect,
But it's such a broad industry. So you're either, fulfilling dog treats or T-shirts or coffee mugs or, iPhone cases, or, you have to specialize in something. And I think that people may get confused, like what we do. We toll pack a blending process that it's a very niche thing for us to do. We're not trying to warehouse coffee mugs.
Do you find that specialization makes it easier to communicate value?
Yeah, because we don't get distracted. So I think if we were trying to be all things to all people, then you get distracted and you're not fully focused on one area. It's like, your profit margins are going to, suffer. You're going to start concentrating on things that you shouldn't be. So yeah.
And to go further into the specialization, I like to call this the digital evolution, but there have been many different kind of digital platforms to help the shipper, help the brand ultimately find their best fit partner, right? WareMatch being one of them. But I wanted to ask you kind of more in depth, where do you see these platforms ultimately helping both the shipper and the 3PL, and in what aspects do they, not capture the full story, or they can't capture everything, right? So I want to know kind of where.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been platforms out there. ThomasNet's a great example. ThomasNet's been around for a very long time. They're very focused on the manufacturing end of things. If you need a widget machined and you don't know any machine shops, you can get on the ThomasNet and find a machine shop for sure. And it's always been a great tool to be able to go somewhere and you can find out, very quickly. Like with you guys, if you're looking for a warehouse and you need somebody to warehouse coffee mugs for you, you can find a warehouse that is specialized in warehousing coffee mugs. If you need someplace like us where, if you do need a place to warehouse windows and doors and they're crated, we have the infrastructure and the heavy equipment to unload, great big crates off of a truck and warehouse them. So we're offering a couple different services, but we're handling bigger, heavier items that aren't we're not picking one thing out of a package and putting it into another package and sending it. It's, we're shipping, full pallets of product that we're producing, or we will, ship straight to customer for product that we make. But yeah, I think they help tremendously.
And on a call it forecasting side, so I always find it interesting that you have 3PLs with many different business models, but the way that they ultimately price out the customer, the shipper, is relatively standardized, right? So is there like a specific metric or forecasting model that you guys use to understand, what range can I price out this customer? Is this a profitable, decision for us to make?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know your competition. You have to know what the market will bear. And I know that on certain things, we can demand a higher price because we're adding more value. If we're just storing an item, a crate, and we're just unloading it and loading it, we have to be pretty aggressive with our pricing there, because it doesn't take a whole lot to do that. If you have a forklift and a dock or an overhead door, you can unload something and put it away. But the more value you add, the more selective you can be, I feel.
And I like to think of it as, I call it the impossible matrix, where you have cost, quality of service, and specialization. How do you kind of most effectively balance all three?
We have different pricing models for different services, I guess.
Okay. And I guess to flip it to the shipper side, what have you noticed kind of in their, sourcing or selection criteria being the most important things to them, right? Some only care about that bottom line, whereas some care more about, getting the most out of the service or getting the most value out of it, right? But value is subjective at the end of the day, right? So I kind of want to ask you, like, what do you see that value really being?
For the actual trucking company, or
for the shipper, so for the customer?
Yeah, I mean, we have customers that only care about, they're going to take the cheapest possible, whatever the cheapest is, and they're always going to do that. And I feel it causes more issues. So for us, we want to use somebody that's going to show up on time, that can probably, effectively communicate. They're professional, but not everyone's going to go down that, that train of thought. They just, if they're setting up the shipping, then they're going to pick the cheapest of the cheap.
And to throw it back to a bit before, you mentioned that you guys are in the process of getting your ISO certifications. What does that kind of whole process look like from start to finish, right? From thinking, hey, we should get this, we need this, because I've always found that fascinating.
It's a long process. I mean, and we moved on top of it, but it's a long process. It's a lot of documentation. It's a lot of training. There's multiple audits. We utilized, again, we teamed up with MEP out of Columbus to help us with a consultant, and buy-in from your team. So, and it's from everyone, from the person that's sweeping the floor to the top, and everyone has to be bought in. I think for us, it's, when we tell somebody that we're ISO certified, or we're very close to being ISO certified, it takes all the quality question out of it. They want to know, okay, we have this in place. If we don't have it in place, which we didn't for years, I mean, we started in 2014, we're just now becoming ISO certified. There's a lot of documentation to fill out on, what is your quality? Like, how do you ensure quality? And now with ISO, it's, okay, we're ISO certified, or here's our letter that says that we're going to have our final audit on this date, and And I feel it's helped us out tremendously, especially with bigger companies.
For sure. And you mentioned the notion of, having your entire team bought in, right? As a leader, how do you ultimately get everyone to be bought in? Everyone's got different priorities, different ways that they like to be led. So how do you most effectively manage that at the top?
Communicate why it's important and how it's going to, help the company grow and help them as an individual grow and ultimately make their lives easier, because we do have a process. Quality, building in quality is, again, just a process of what you're doing.
And I guess in building that culture, is it something that's, a culture is standardized and the people get bought into the culture, or is the culture kind of adaptive to the team itself?
That's a great question. I'm a huge believer in culture. I want everyone to enjoy coming to work, and every day you're not going to enjoy coming to work. But I feel if people really feel that they add value, then you're going to have a culture of people that care. We have a guy that just started 4 days ago. I'm walking the floor this morning, and he comes up to me, and I'm hard of hearing, so he had to yell at me to get my attention. But he's like, "Hey, I have this idea to improve this process." I'm like, "I'm all in. Tell me." And he, sees something that's not quite working perfectly with the new machine that we just bought. And I'm like, "I think that's a great idea. Let's try and make that work." And just having input and feeling that you're making a difference, it creates a certain culture. If I were to say, "No, your job is to do that, you press that button, keep your ideas to yourself," that guy's, he's not going to feel like he's contributing, and he's probably going to, hate life. He's going to hate me, and it's just not going to be a fun place to be. But when you empower people, it changes everything, I feel.
1,000%. And would you say that's something that you as a leader kind of had to learn over time?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked for companies that say that they want to do that, and at the end of the day, they don't. And I've seen it destroy the culture. You go to a Christmas party and like 4 people show up. You know what the culture is really quickly when you have a cookout and nobody participates. So I've seen the really bad and I've seen the really good. So yeah, certainly I've learned what to do and what not to do over time.
Great. And then even in the actual, recruitment hiring process, if you will, is that something you're looking for in a prospective employee, is having that, that intuition, that notion of, okay, they're ready to be bought in?
Yeah, and we're looking for attitude more than anything. If somebody has a talent but they have a poor attitude, it's just not going to work, right? If we're interviewing somebody and they're not a good fit, I'll call it, then we're not going to hire them. Even though we need, like everyone else, we're struggling to hire people, and we've passed on a lot of people because the culture here is more important to me than just having a body on the floor. And if we, they come in and they work for a few days and they start dragging the team down and they become a crab in the bucket, then they're not a good fit. We're gonna help you find happiness elsewhere. But if you don't have the skill, but you have a great attitude, we'll help you, figure it out.
1,000%. And would you say that same kind of concept applies, we'll call it proactivity, when you're working with a prospective customer through that whole sourcing process? I guess to speak more broadly, what does that look like for you? I mean, it is We mentioned a couple of times that it is kind of a confusing industry. There's a lot of terminology, a lot of lingo. Is there a process of educating the customer, if you will, through the initial, discovery phase?
Yeah, I think if we get a customer walk our facility and they see everyone bought in and working as a team, and there's a radio playing and they see that everyone is working in sync, that goes a hell of a lot further than walking into a place and you can feel the energy is negative, and then I think the customer's like, geez, am I going to get my stuff out on time or not? I do think that there's a certain energy to a place, good or bad.
For sure. Well, listen, Dustin, this has been incredible so far. My last question I always like to ask is kind of an open mic and open floor. So first off, if you want to touch on anything that I may have missed in asking you, or if you just want to give a monologue, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think what I would like to close with is still around culture. One of the things that we're implementing is kind of a second chance type of a culture on the floor where somebody may have a tattered past. There's a company in Columbus called Hot Chicken Takeover. Joe, I can't remember his last name. He was in our Vistage group before I belonged, but he created a system of hiring people that have had a felony or something, and they just have a hard time getting hired because most places won't hire if you have that type of background. And he was able to create a system that was wildly successful. Turnover was extremely low. And he built a phenomenal team, and we're doing that here. And hopefully, the idea behind it is we get great workers, but ultimately we can help change somebody's life, for the better. And knowing that, there's people out there that can't get a job because they've made a mistake 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and they want to, better their lives. Hopefully we can change those folks' lives by giving them another opportunity. But still, culture is everything. And, I think that that's a fun story as well that, we can talk about and be proud of.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that, actually. Well, listen, Dustin, thank you so much for coming on. I had a blast, and let's hope this goes viral.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Take care. Cool. All right, so I'll stop it there. Thank you very much. It was good. You're a great interviewee.
Oh, thanks. No, I've had my own podcast for probably 5 years, 6 years. So we don't do a whole lot anymore because I think I told you, we started people coming on like wanting to sell their book. And I'm like, I don't fucking want to sell your book. So
yeah, no, it's fine. I'll get the occasional person where it's the past few have been great, like the open mic, for example, right? Where some people are just like, yeah, come check out my 3PL. We're in this, we do this. I'm like, okay. But no, that was good. It was a great culture. The second chance thing is awesome. I really like that.
No, it'll be fun. Everyone here, I have a guy that that does, he made a mistake and he's worked here for a little over a year, and he's my best employee by far. And I don't know why, I really didn't think about going down this road earlier, but, I talked to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I think that would be phenomenal. He's like, he got here at 4:30 this morning. He wasn't supposed to start until 6, and he'll be here until 6 or 7 tonight. I mean, he's just, a phenomenal worker. He wants to prove that he can make a difference. He's so thankful for the opportunity, and he got let go. He was trying to work at Speedway because he just couldn't find a job, and Speedway, it made it to corporate that he had a felony, and they let him go.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine not being able to get a job at a gas station. I mean, so.
Fine, it's the biggest thing. It's not, doesn't matter. It's what you bring to the table at the end of the day is all that really matters, you know?
Sure. I've been around some of the most badass guys that are, made mistakes 10 years ago that, but want to move on behind, or even women for, guys and girls. And they made a mistake and it's just devastated their life.
Yeah.
So
But they're on the rebound. It's awesome.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I appreciate it. We have some hats. I'll shoot you one. We actually have a newer hat. I think these are cool. As well.
I like that.
I don't think I have any more. This is the first one. It's a little dirty. It's been.
Oh, it's clean though.
Trenches a little bit.
I'm a fan. I'm big on trying to collect as much merch as possible. I wear my WareMatch stuff all the time. Everyone thinks I'm such a tool, but I'm like, it's nice. I like
I'm the same way. If I want to wear, I'm not going to wear somebody else's brand. I'll wear my own.
Right.
So
it's got your name on it. That's awesome. I'll
cool,
get there one day.
You're already there. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. Proud to be a part of it, and hopefully it'll make a difference and we can make a little money from your guys' site. So
I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's the goal, right? At the end of the day, let's make a buck.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Of course, likewise. Thank you for coming on. Take care.